Hi, I'm Bailey Cichon, the Gazette's social video producer, and I'm here with Mike Hlas, our sports columnist, and we're here to talk about the Cy-Hawk game that's happening this weekend. Mike and I are going to debate a little bit. I am not from the sports world. I'm actually from Wisconsin, but I am an alum of the University of Iowa. Hlas has been covering this game for decades, and we have some opinions, and it's not so much about the football side of things, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. Mike, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what we're going to talk about today?
Well, for the last few years, this time of the year, I've argued that you've got this big rivalry, Iowa and Iowa State. You've got this terrible name for it, the Cy-Hawk Trophy. I mean, just the dullest, lamest, laziest name you could come up with. You've got names around the country of these state rivalry games that they make me almost want to watch. I mean, the Iron Bowl or the Civil War or the Apple Cup, or they're either weird or they're intense or they're funny. The Oklahoma State game is called Bedlam. You know, why has Iowa State never come up with a word or a phrase for its game if this is such a significant rivalry? The Cy-Hawk Trophy, it just lies there, and nobody seems to be able to want to do anything about it.
And see, I'm on the other side of this, where I think that the Iowa State game really is just another football game. And honestly, the conduct of students and fans has me thinking that we should kind of downplay the significance of this game just because of recent events. A couple years ago, I think it was 2019, it was the Cy-Hawk marching band the Iowa marching band, and there was injuries and fans harassing, and that's just normal in a football game, right? I mean, if you show up wearing the other team's colors, you're going to get, kind of thrown around by fans, or at least verbally. But it was bad enough where a member of the band did break ribs, and there were bruises and different things, and that's not something that I think should be representing both schools.
No, that's not good. I mean, there've been a lot of instances in college football where things went too far. Alabama and Auburn are state rivals, and some Alabama fan went to Auburn and poisoned their oak trees, and that wasn't good. But I think this rivalry's been overblown in the state of Iowa. I mean, yeah, the two teams don't care for each other, and the fans are not all that respectful of each other verbally. But as far as if you put it on the list of state rivalry games around the country, I think it's way down the list because, first of all, it's played in September instead of a climatic part of the year. They're not in the same conference, and there just haven't been that many great games over the years.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Is Iowa and Iowa State a good matchup from a sports perspective?
It has been the last few years because much was expected of Iowa State. Last year was an aberration. They both came into the game in the top 10. That had never happened before. Unfortunately, the game didn't live up to all the hype. They had ESPN's College Game Day on campus in Ames, and you had a lot of national media dropping in to do profiles on Iowa State's program, and they didn't overlook Iowa either. And it was thought, okay, this is the biggest Iowa State game of all time. Well, Iowa State won 27-17, but it was an unremarkable game. And it was also not a sign of what was to come, because while they were both in the top 10 going in, and Iowa got as high as number 2, which is still hard to believe, they both ended the season in Orlando, which is not a place I'd want to wind up in anytime, anywhere, and in bowl games that weren't for national playoffs or anything significant. Iowa finished the season, I think, ranked 23rd, and Iowa State wasn't ranked at all. So maybe this year, with neither team ranked and expectations dialed down, especially with Iowa after the game it played last week, which was not particularly pleasant to watch, with the low expectations, maybe the opposite will occur, and you'll have interesting, fun, classically great results. Maybe not.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, we want to hear from you in the comments about your opinions on this game. Everybody has a stake in it if you live in the state of Iowa, even if you're a UNI fan. I'm sure you at least have to hear about it. Because it's a big rivalry, but I'm curious to hear your opinions. And as somebody who I did go to Iowa, but it never was really top of my thing. You know, there's the campus, the signage that gets posted.
There's life beyond college football.
I know it's hard to believe. Yeah, there actually is, but I know there's always the kind of harassing signs that are hung from sororities and fraternities, and that's always fun to see because it's creative and it's, you know, it's fun. But when it gets to physically harming people over a football game, I just think there's more important things to spend energy on.
Well, Bailey, I think that is, you're talking about just a tiny, just a sliver of what goes on. What really always surprises me is for all the so-called rancor, the internet rancor, which you see and hear about this game in the week that leads up to it, that when you go to the site of the game, and here are, I don't know how many people in the parking lots, but it's a lot more than the 70,000 in the stands. The camaraderie and the friendship and the people wearing Cyclone and Hawkeye garb who are together, even married couples in a lot of instances, but friends of both schools, and the unpleasantry seems to be at a minimum. Now, I don't know what it's like after a game because I'm working and I don't get out there, and I don't hear if there's gloating or taunting or hard feelings or rock fights, what have you. But before the game, I think, you know, it seems like they get along a lot better than they're given credit for.
And, you know, nationally, Iowa is seen as one of those schools that fans really like to come to for games. Iowa fans they have a pretty good reputation typically.
Yeah, I mean, it has become, and I really mostly in the last 5 or 10 years, I hate to use the word iconic, but it's one of the better known football venues in the country. Because the wave thing certainly got a lot of people on Iowa's side in the other 49 states. But beyond that, when you do see a game there, it's like, it's different because the stadium is just plopped basically right into the edge of a residential area. And I mean, you've got the hospital here, and it is so, there's not a lot of room to breathe. I mean, the stands are so close to the field, and the stadium is so close to the town that there's an intimacy there that you just don't get in a lot of college football stadiums, you know, in the Big Ten and in general.
Are there games from the past that stick out to you?
Oh, sure. But I mean, of all the ones that have been, there are precious few. The game that I always come back to was 2002. Iowa goes 11-1 in the regular season, but the one loss was to Iowa State. And it wasn't just that they lost Iowa State, it was how they did it. Iowa was ahead, I think, 24-7 at halftime, and a quarterback named Seneca Wallace, a name that will go down in infamy in Iowa history, played one of the most marvelous halves of football I've ever seen in person and rallied Iowa State to a 36-31 win. And at the time, it was, you know, it was September, and Iowa had no idea what that loss was going to cost them. It cost them a spot in the national championship game. So that night, you saw a special performance, and months later and 20 years later, it still resonates.
See, I was 2 years old at the time, so probably wouldn't have remembered any of that.
Bragging doesn't become you.
No. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, except my condolences to England for the Queen.
Yes, yeah, we are recording this just after the news came out about Queen Elizabeth, and hopefully this death isn't going to be weighing on our players' minds.
I would go to one of the sports books online and place a heavy wager that the players are not the least bit concerned at game time.
You know, if it's something with Australia, maybe Tory Taylor would have some thoughts on that, but I don't think England is gonna make some waves over here in Iowa.
Well, now you've given me a lot to think about this weekend.
Thank you for tuning in. Again, leave your comments. And for the Gazette, I'm Bailey Cichon, and this is Mike Hlas signing off.